Welcome to Talking Personal Wealth Management podcast. My name is Leah Crowley, and in this series we're taking a look at a range of topics that you might know a little bit about but want to get a better understanding of. We explore all areas of personal wealth management, including investing, estate planning, financial advisory, self-managed super funds, insurance, and financial life cycles. Today, we get to have a chat with Michael Hutton, partner of HLB Mann, Judd Sydney's Wealth Management Division. How are you, Michael?
Oh, very well, thanks, Leah.
It's great to have you here because this is the episode that we're kicking it all off with. You know, we're getting an understanding of personal wealth and personal wealth management, more importantly. So just give us kind of an overview of where you sit within HLB Mann Judd.
So I'm a partner with HLB Mann Judd. I've been with the firm since university, actually. Since graduating, and been a partner there since 1996, and principally been involved with the self-managed super fund division and the wealth management division of the firm.
Was that what you wanted when you were at uni, or did you sort of get the interest whilst working?
Yeah, I didn't know it existed.
Yeah, right, okay.
when I was at uni.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just sort of morphed into it. I started off as an auditor back in the day and then moved through our accounting tax divisions and discovered superannuation and discovered I really actually quite enjoyed that. And then that broadened out into what we now call wealth management.
So what is wealth management? What is personal wealth management?
Yeah, it's
a big question.
It is a big question, but it's broadly managing your wealth.
Yeah.
And that sounds pretty simple, but there's a lot to it. It involves a whole range of things. It involves our clients' cash flow issues, their tax structure, tax planning, their compliance obligations, also estate planning, retirement planning. It's important for people to protect their wealth with various insurances and so forth. And of course, there's investing of your wealth. Now, most people probably think that wealth management is just the investment bit, but to me, that's a crucial, but only it is crucial, but it's only part of the equation. So investing the money and making sure that that's done well. And I think because wealth management is so broad, that as chartered accountants, we get to bring a lot of our skills to bear for the benefit of the client. And such a really interesting part of the practice to be in.
And just the nature of what it is means it's such a long-term relationship that you have with those clients.
Yeah, so once you have the trust of the client and you understand their situation and their background, how it all ties together, their family situation, you do build a great relationship with them. And typically we do, our hope and plan is to maintain that relationship for a long time. And that's often the case.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would imagine a client's perspective is, well, if you're on a good thing, stick with it. Like, these people understand our intricacies. I mean, you said like the family dynamics and all that kind of stuff as well. Like you guys know that because you have to make sure that the personal wealth is managed correctly.
Yeah, and the other thing with the firm like ours is that we don't have to know everything ourselves.
Yeah.
So we have got people behind us. We have got estate planning specialists. We have got tax specialists. We've got superannuation specialists, aged care specialists behind us. So the thing for the client is that the client doesn't have to go and explain their financial situation, their family situation to a range of different advisors. We can help manage that for them and bring in the relevant expert when required.
Yeah, when required, exactly. This may sound like a simple question, but it's probably a really complicated answer. But what's the difference between income and wealth?
Yeah, it does. That sounds simple, but and people think, I've got high income and therefore I'm wealthy, or I've got low income and so I'm not wealthy. But we have a different view on that, and that is that income is what you earn, wealth is what you own. You've got to spend less than you earn to be building up your wealth. Now, you can have a really high income, but if you spend it all, and sometimes people have really high income, they spend it all, plus they spend more, and so they're living on borrowed money. They're not becoming wealthy, they're becoming negative wealth. And sometimes people have quite a low income, but they chip away and they put a bit away every month, every week. And over time, they become quite wealthy. and it's a funny thing that the more income you're used to, the more wealth you need to then survive when the income stops.
Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it.
So higher income earners actually need a lot more wealth if they're used to living on that level of income.
Yeah.
And so we certainly talk to people about their cash flow. Having money to set aside each month is a really good way to do it if they can manage that. But the important thing then is to have somewhere to put it, because if you haven't got somewhere good to put that spare money.
You mean like your everyday bank account? Probably not the best place.
Yeah, and if it can be separated from the everyday bank account, so if it can go, even if it goes into a particular managed fund, or you buy particular shares, or whatever it might be, that's where you're making wealth or building wealth over time.
How has the personal wealth management sector changed over? How many years have you been specifically involved in this division?
Yeah, so to be over 20 years now.
Yeah, right. You must have seen a lot of changes.
Yeah, I guess I have. But the last couple of years, probably the last 5 years, have been particularly significant. There's been there was a Royal Commission into the whole financial services sector, which was very well reported on, advertised. There was the whole FASIA was formed, a body to look at the professionalism and training standards of this sector. And between those two events, there's been a lot of focus on the professionalism of wealth management advisors and training obligations for them.
Yeah, right. And I assume that within HLB Mann, Judd, that's something that is constantly maintained.
Yeah. We pride ourselves on complying with what it is that we have to comply with. But with education, the firm's always been very strong on education anyway. We have uni degrees to start with, which was a big starting point with FASIA particularly. I think the industry, it has changed the industry though, because a lot of people, maybe older people, advisors that have been doing it for a long time but didn't necessarily tick the boxes for some of the educational requirements and things, have decided to finish up and get out of the industry. So there's a lot less advisors around at the moment. But the other thing is the Royal Commission particularly was critical of the banks, the large banks, and the way they provided financial advice, and the vertical integration, that model that they have, whereby advisors were incentivised to advise the clients but then have their investments placed into investment products that were provided by the banks, hence the vertical integration. And it was seen as and sometimes the advice might have been good and the products might be good, but it was still seen as a massive conflict of interest. And so the banks have retreated from the industry big time.
Like totally, or?
Pretty much totally. Apart from, they still have some private bank type arrangements where they will still deal with some what they call wholesale clients, or, larger clients, where they don't have to provide the same degree of compliance obligations and reporting. And so the problem that I see with that is that a lot of people who want financial advice, there's sort of less avenues for them to go to find that advice.
And there might be, like you said, with so many people having left, there might be people struggling to get in the door just for that advice now.
Exactly, and I don't see that as a good thing.
No,
I think that's a bad outcome from the extra obligations. No problem with extra obligations, that's fine, but I think it has had a poor impact on the affordability and availability of financial advice.
Yeah, well, that was one question that I was going to ask. Like, when would you like people to start coming for financial advice? Like, at what stage in their life? Is it their first job, or is it sort of once they're a little more financially
organised?
Yeah, organised. Yeah.
I think my general answer would be the earlier the better.
Yeah.
But typically, from sort of age 40, 45 onwards is good. Often we start speaking to people when they might be 2 years away from retirement and they're really starting to think about it. And that's fine, and we can do a lot there, but often it would have been handier and we could have done more and helped them more along the way if they'd come and seen us earlier. So probably 45 is a good age.
To sort of have that long-term game plan.
Yeah, and I'd probably say that sort of age, because at that point, you know, if they do have kids, if they do have a mortgage, those sort of things, and the school costs and things are probably starting to be under control.
Yeah.
And so they're probably starting to think about different things to do with their money, and that's a good time, you know, for them to seek advice on what they should do with their money.
And if they do want to sort of get into some sort of investing, which I'm assuming that's what they're coming for, but then you can point them or have them look at those really long-term investments that are the slow burners.
Yeah, I think accumulating wealth, unfortunately, for most people is a long-term proposition. It's very rare that you can accumulate wealth very quickly, and you know, I've had it suggested to me that you can marry it.
You can marry it or buy the ticket for it.
Yeah.
Or the chance for it, I should say.
Yeah, you can win the lottery or you can build a business that you then sell for a lot of money. But those sort of things are rare. It's more a long, slow burn to build good, sustainable wealth.
So when you do see these people who come in, you know, maybe 2 to 5 years before they want to retire, what kind of advice or help with their managing their funds or their wealth management are they coming to you for? And is there sometimes you having to sort of dampen their expectations a bit?
Yeah, probably. It's often at that stage, it's often the thinking about their superannuation, and we've built it up now. It's 2 years away from retirement. What should we do with our superannuation? But to me, superannuation is just a small part of the equation. And things like, you know, they might have had an inheritance, they might have just sold a business, they might be about to retire but wondering what they do about putting food on the table each month. Yeah. Every client situation is different, which makes it interesting for me. It makes it more difficult for me too. But often it's about structuring the wealth that they have and maybe rearranging things a bit, maybe getting more of their wealth into superannuation, or maybe we can't do that because they're already up to their limits. Because, you know, super is quite restrictive these days. It just depends. And even things like reviewing their insurances and things, because maybe they don't need income protection insurance anymore. So why pay it?
Yeah, that's right. They're almost like trimming the fat kind of
exactly
point. Yeah.
Like I'm one that accumulates subscriptions, you know, to the cricket ground or the ski club or and all these things that you don't use, and you think, you know, really I should trim that fat. Yeah. But people have built up a lot of things like that along the way that they just automatically renew.
Or it automatically renews and you've forgotten about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of thing must be eye-opening. And, I mean, it must almost be like, it's like the super version of like going to your accountant for a tax return. Like, you're just like, all right, here's everything, but not just for this year, for all of everything.
Here's my history.
Yeah, here's my history. And I don't remember all of my history. So you must be trying to like pull bits of information and stuff out of people that they've forgotten because that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, and in fact, sometimes they come to us after they die. So,
what? Hang on, wait. Do you get visits from ghosts?
No, but it's we get called in to help sort out an estate.
Yeah, right.
And it's often the case that people have built up that are now deceased. They've built up a share portfolio that they're passing on to the surviving partner or to the kids or whatever. And there's no history with the portfolio, no cost-based history kept. And so we're trying to recreate that and fix up their records such that the estate can be administered and the assets can be distributed accordingly. Yeah,
right. It must, kind of almost like doing some sort of forensic work.
Yeah, it's a bit of a forensic accounting
exercise. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you were talking about investments and portfolios. Should the structure of your personal investments change depending on your age? I mean, or is it just I'm building it up as I go along?
The structure is extremely important. We put a lot of thought into the structure for each client. And sometimes it's just around superannuation, for example, because you get tax benefits, but sometimes it's not because you don't have accessibility to it. For example, if you're at the 45-year-old that I mentioned before, you don't want to put all your money into superannuation because you can't touch it for another 20 years. It's inaccessible. So for different people, we might be looking at personal investment portfolios. These days we're setting up a lot of people having personal investment companies. And
explain that.
Well, that's where you set up your own company. You're the director, you're the shareholder, or you and your spouse, perhaps. And you have money available to invest, but you loan it to the company and the company invests it for you. Now, why would you do that? You do that because the company has a tax rate of 30% and a company can build up its profits. It doesn't have to pay its profits out each year like a family trust would. And so you can build up a very nice investment portfolio within your own company that then accumulates at a 30% tax rate. And then later in life, as you want to pull money out to to put food on the table, you can pay yourself a dividend out of the company, which is fully franked and tax effective to you. And it's actually a great way to build up a long-term portfolio. Now, that's quite different to a superannuation fund. It's quite different to a family trust and quite different to a personal investment portfolio, but different styles of portfolio are appropriate at different stages of life.
You said that's quite popular now. Has it not always been, and why hasn't it always been?
I think in the past, family trusts have been seen as the main next investment vehicle, but family trusts they have complications, and they have the government keeps trying to change the treatment of family trusts. The tax office keep trying to change the treatment of family trusts, whereas companies they're very steady, a set tax rate, which hopefully will come down in future years. They're perpetual in that the company doesn't die when you die. It can continue on.
Yeah,
so it can
exactly.
So it can be passed in toto to the next generation, for example, which makes it really good for estate planning. Whereas a superannuation fund does have to be wound up when you die. So, they've always been popular, or they've always been around, but I'd say they've been less popular than family trusts. But that's probably changing now.
That's interesting. So we know that having a diverse portfolio is something that is always advised as being a great thing. But how diverse should you go, and should you become more or less diverse the closer you get to retirement?
I don't know that it matters the closer you are to retirement. I like diversity generally.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think it minimises some of your risks and it's just a safer way to go. Whereas but other people disagree with that. Other people say, you should invest in what you know in and put all your money in what you know, and so you don't diversify at all. And some people buy 3 houses in the one street and 2 of them are rental properties, one of them they live in, and that's diversification for them.
Yeah, right.
Whereas to me, having money in different styles of investment markets, and so by that I'm talking about Australian shares, international shares, emerging markets, property, infrastructure, fixed interest, cash investments. So there's a whole spectrum of investments out there. And then actually having diversity within each of those asset categories as well, it just feels a lot safer to me if anything goes wrong with any particular company or asset sector or market. I like the idea of having diversity. And I think if you do have a good diverse portfolio and you add to it regularly over a long time, then good things will happen.
You must get to one point where you're like, oh, I'm panicking about this one particular thing. Do you ever have to talk people out of, you're like, no, it's not on fire, it's fine, just hang in there? Like, are there any moments where you have clients that panic about one particular part of their investment portfolio?
Yeah, but often it's only going to be 5% of the portfolio maximum.
Yeah, right.
So they've got other stuff that isn't going pear-shaped.
Yeah.
But occasionally everything hits a fan, and occasionally there's nowhere to hide. Like the financial crisis 2007, 2008, there was really nowhere to hide. All investments went south. Even COVID hitting the markets in March 2020, broadly the portfolios were going down dramatically, no matter how diversified they were. But if people have a good quality portfolio, it's well invested, it's well structured, it's well segmented into the different markets, hang in there. Over time, good things will happen.
Well, over this series, we'll be exploring sort of more niche points that you've brought up during this episode. So I just want to say thank you, Michael, for this wonderful overview, and look forward to catching you up in another series soon.
All right, thanks, Leah. My pleasure.
Michael Hutton's expertise and knowledge is part of HLB Mann Judd's Personal Wealth Management Services. For further information, please visit our website hlb.com.au.